Hey guys, welcome to the trade. Tonight's episode 17, we're going to be talking about humor writing tonight. And with me is Robert from Ride and Shine and Chance of Doom. Say hello.
Hello.
And then, let's see, we also have Dave from Girl Power.
Hola.
And then we also have Jake from Modest Medusa.
Hey.
And then, of course, there's me, Melony. I do steamandnonsense.tumblr.com and soon to launch ornamentalcomic.com. Yay! But
Soon to launch as in, like, how soon?
probably within the next 2 weeks, I'm hoping.
Oh, cool.
That's really
I've got most everything honestly done for the site. I've got some more tweaking to do. There's some updates I need to do, things like that. I don't like the banner. I gotta finish tweaking the banner. You know how that goes. But
Yeah.
overall, it's pretty much ready. Pretty much. Maybe a little bit.
How long have you guys preparing?
Well, let's see. I've been writing Steam and Nonsense for about a year and a half now. Ornamental for about 3, on and off. I keep going to do it, and then I would get sick, or I keep injuring this arm or shoulder. I've broken it, dislocated it, and gotten smashed by a forklift.
Oh, damn. I
On
didn't know
purpose,
that.
correct?
It's fun. I love working at a lumber store. Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah, so that's why I want to make comics, so I don't have to be injured by forklifts anymore.
You'd be surprised. I've been working on my comic it's coming up on 4 years now. I think 4 years in August. Although I guess I've been writing. I mean, I had 18 pages of comics done before I actually launched my comic. So I don't know, maybe 5 years, say.
Yeah, see, most everybody I know of has, before they even launch, usually been working on it for a year or 2 or even 3 before they even really got the ball rolling.
Well, that's really smart. I did not start like that, but I think that's the right way to do it. Yeah, I had spent years listening to webcomic podcasts. One of the big ones was Webcomics Weekly, which is PvP and but guys who have been doing it for 10 or more years who know what they're talking about, and their advice is always, you're not going to get rich right away. Plan ahead. Just like sensible advice for doing something where you're trying to make a living off of it, which is great. So I spent a lot of time making sure that I could keep to the schedule that I had planned on doing before I put a page up. So it took me, it probably took me 2 weeks to get the first page drawn, and then I started getting my routine down. I use this program for this, and use this program for this, and just getting a routine going. Yeah, that's why I had so much stuff. Eventually, it was just I was doing a comic a week and not publishing them, which is why I had 18 pages done. And eventually, I was just like, I guess I just need to hit the button, change of pace here. So, and of course, as soon as you post it and you start getting feedback, that changes your writing process a little bit. It's not just you're doing it in a vacuum, but now it's out there and you're getting reviews and thoughts about it and stuff.
Yeah,
that really affects the whole thing.
Oh, yeah. I'm so apprehensive about getting comments and feedback right away. I'm just like, I don't think I'll hear anything. I don't think anybody will like it, but I like it. I keep laughing at it, so whatever.
Turn off the comments then, Don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can start with the comment. I mean, like on WordPress, there's just a button you click to disable comments. Well, actually, I think there's probably a master switch for it, but I was doing it where I was manually disabling comments for a while because I looked at all like the biggest comics out there. You know, Penny Arcade and well, I don't know about Oatmeal, but you know, PvP and all those guys. None of them had comments enabled, and a lot of them had complained that having a community, you know, managing that community became like a full-time job. But I guess that's because, you know, their community was so big that you'd have not only just a bunch of people saying, "Oh, I like your comic," but there'd be people swinging by just to be trolls and stuff.
Yeah.
So
I feel like that's legitimate. I also feel like, especially when you're getting started out, the communities can be. I mean, if you're fostering a community, it can be too important to really ignore it.
Yeah, no, I agree. One day I forgot to click the button and I started getting comments, and it was like, it was so cool. It was like pat on the back kind of stuff. And since then, I went back and I re-enabled comments on all the early comics and stuff, and now I get like 300 comments per page that goes up minimum. Some of them get like 4, almost 500, and it's, you know, it used to be that I read every single comment, but that was when I was at work and, you know, should have been working, but I would just scroll through. Now I try to make sure and swing by and read the bulk of them, but that's like an hour worth of reading, you know, just to get into that stuff. And if I decide to start replying to stuff, which I like doing, I like being involved in it. That's even more time. So.
Yeah, that can easily suck up your day.
Yeah, but the comments are so great. I mean, the community is, because webcomics can get by. You can have 1 million people reading your webcomic, or 1,000 people like super into it. Because there's a lot of comics out there that are like, this one's about a deaf guy, or this one's about transgender people, or they're so niche that the community, whatever community you do get, becomes super engaged. Mine's just about superheroes, which is a little bit tired, maybe. You know, not so much in webcomics, because, you know, just regular comics, but, you know, it attracts exactly the kind of people that you hang out with after you watch Star Trek, and, you know, the next day, oh, you see they did this thing and they did the shield and whatever. And it's just nerd talk, you know, and it's great.
Yes, nerd talk. Jake, I was gonna ask you how SakuraCon went.
Oh, it was disastrous.
Was it?
I should explain. SakuraCon is always my best show every year. It's a show that not very many other comic people go to, but it's got a huge audience. A lot of my readers go there because they live in Seattle, and it's a lot of fun.
Right.
And this year, I didn't have a new book, and so I showed up, and I saw, you know, all my readers, and they were all like, hey, you know, we like you, and we can't wait to buy the new book. So the lesson I'm learning this year for conventions is when I don't have a new book, sales are slow.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a regular at a convention, I guess all your regulars have already picked up your stuff.
Yeah, and that's what it was. I mean, it was still an okay show, but I was hoping to do what I did last year, sales-wise, and it just didn't happen. Yeah. It was really good to see everybody, though. It's still a fun show.
SakuraCon is the big anime con in Seattle? Yeah. The only one
did you have a booth or an artist deli table?
I had a small press booth, which is like, you know, in between. And it's a great deal, and it's a nice large space. It's near Artist Alley without actually being right in the middle of it. And it's been really good for me for the last 3 years.
I was just asking because every time I've tried to get into Artist Alley, it sells out in like 6 seconds.
It's completely impossible. I'm hesitant to share this secret because there's only like 10 small press tables, but you should totally apply for a small press table. I never even... I'm going to regret saying this. I never even bother applying until about a month before the convention, and there's always...
Yeah. I'll try next year.
And it's only like...
Go ahead.
Oh, it's only like $100 more, which can be a huge amount of money for some people, but I feel like it's always worth it. It's also like 4 times
about the queue that you know, A-Con is the big one I go to, and that'll probably be my first convention, because I'll probably wrap up my first story arc near the end of this year, and so run a Kickstarter to fund the book, get the book printed and stuff like that. ACON is early June, so I figure that's reasonable to do my first comic, my first con, because it's local. I don't have to load up a plane or anything, and just throw up my car and drive down there. But yeah, it's a big con and it's growing. But actually getting a table, I don't know. That may be super difficult.
Yeah, I had a lot of luck at Fanime last year down in San Jose, so I tried to go this year, and tables sold out in like 4 minutes. It was nuts.
There needs to be a better system like that, because
there needs to be a better system. Yeah.
Because another con I go to, it's not anime or anything. It's a QuakeCon in Dallas, and it's a BYOC. It's bring your own computer. They have a 2,000 person LAN. It's great fun, for a weekend. And I've been to like the last 14 of them in a row, but the last 2 years they've sold out before I knew they were selling anything. Part of the problem is they don't sell tickets. They have the sponsors fund everything. So there's the people in like the Ukraine will sign up just in case they're in Dallas that weekend.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the solution for tables selling out instantly is. I mean, what do you do? Charge twice as much for the tables, or
I don't know. I mean,
10 one
I feel
night,
like
10 the next night or something?
I feel like the other side of that is down here in Portland, we lost our local yearly kind of indie comic convention, the Stumptowns Comic Fest, and somebody kind of did a replacement show for it called Line Work Northwest, and I didn't get to go, but from what I understand, it was a cool show, but it was kind of the opposite of the first come first served basis. It was entirely curated. And it ended up being, instead of a bunch of local people, it ended up being mostly people from out of town, which is cool in its own way. But I feel like you can have shows where it's first come first serve and the tables sell out really quickly, or you can have curated shows. I don't feel like there's a lot of shows that really have a middle ground.
Yeah, and with stuff like San Diego Comic-Con, apparently there's no way to get a table unless you've gotten a table for like the last 5 years.
Yeah,
basically.
sure.
And people are reluctant, like they keep going even though that's not a good show for them, because if they ever don't go, that they can never get another table again.
Which is nuts.
Yeah, so I don't have any interest in ever going to San Diego Comic-Con. I mean, just as a spectator, sure, but it sounds like a nightmare for someone actually vending.
Sure, yeah.
I
feel like
San Diego Comic-Con has always been so overblown that it turns me off even as a spectator.
Mm-hmm. I've been, and I don't really plan on going because of all the horror stories I keep hearing.
I have some friends who really like it, but I don't know. I've never been. I've been to other big shows, like I go to PAX fairly often, and I go to Gen Con because I do a lot of role-playing game work. And there's something really cool about being there and being part of something that big, and on the other hand, it's exhausting and it's terrifying, and I never get anything done. So, I don't know. And at the same time, I feel like I get so much more done at smaller shows, but I also feel like as hard as some shows are to get into, to secure a table at, the deck is kind of stacked against you unless you're fairly well known.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so hard to tell what fairly well known means. Like I have, fairly respectable traffic, I think, to my site. I have like 500,000 people read it every month or something. But every time I see like some site has MTV has a list of the top 50 webcomics you should be reading. Like I've never shown up on one of those lists. It's always all the ones that everybody's already heard of, plus the author's own favorites. Which I understand. It's a list. That's the thing. But how do you determine what a big comic is? Because I know there's comics that get invited to stuff like that or get interviewed all the time that have a fraction of my audience.
It's frustrating too, because sometimes I'll go to conventions and I'll be sitting next to somebody who works for Marvel or DC, and they're working on something like, I don't know, like Ghost Rider, and the number of people who read their issues of Ghost Rider are like the readers I get in a week.
Yeah.
And they got in for free. They get preferential treatment. The con's promoting them. I had to pay to get my table, and I'm thinking, but my readership is so much fucking bigger than yours.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, there may be. I'm sure there's some economist that could sit down and figure out. Well, if people are willing to pay $4 for an issue of Ghost Rider, how many fans who read a free comic does that translate into? Like, is it if you have 40 times the number of readers, is that the equivalent number of dedicated fans? I'm sure there's got to be an economist or something somewhere who's done something like that. But trying to quantify human behavior like that is pretty difficult.
Yeah.
Well, I know enough nerds. I'll have to ask.
I totally hear that.
What did you say? You broke up.
I'm sorry. I went to college with several economists. I'll ask.
Oh, okay. That would be good information to know. I don't know. Maybe webcomics people just don't bring in audiences at comic book conventions. I mean, certainly when I go, I meet a lot of people, and when I go to conventions, the people I want to see are often webcomics people. But maybe that's not how it is in most cases.
Yeah, I suspect the whole webcomic community is somewhat insular. People who do webcomics are way more interested about webcomics than people who don't do them. And even if it's a subject matter that they might like. Like A-Kon, I know different cons are set up in different ways, but A-Kon has a growing section in its Artist Alley that is dedicated to webcomics, which is nice that it's there. And they actually have quite a few panels about webcomics. But, most people at A-Kon, it's an anime con. They want to show up and get anime stuff. And if you do a webcomic that's anime, that's a great show for you. Mine is kind of like this hybrid. I guess you can probably see on my screen. It's kind of hybrid. It's mostly, American style art, but it's mixed in and blended. I think fairly well. That it's some of them are. You see people trying to blend styles, and it looks a little jarring. But,
as an anime fan, I think your style is very appropriate for that audience.
Yeah, I read way too much manga for me not to put it in my own comics. So, I guess on to our actual topic, right?
Yeah. We kind of got sidetracked there a little bit. But anyways, okay, so we were going to talk about writing, humor writing specifically. Dave, you said you do a little bit of a presentation there at the convention.
Yeah, I did it one year, and mostly it was me spending an hour before the panel trying to find an adapter to hook my iPad up to their projector because it only had a VHS or a VGA. It only had a VGA adapter, and of course the iPad is digital out, so even my iPad to HDMI to DVI adapter didn't work. So we finally figured something out. So what it was me talking about, like showing a page and then talking about it. And obviously writing humor in story-based comics is different than writing humor in strip-based comics because humor in strip-based comics, in my opinion, I don't do one, but in my opinion, it's much more important for it to be very succinct and having a good punch. In story-based webcomics, you don't have to necessarily end on a punchline, but I tend to chalk my pages full of jokes and like background references and oh, that's from Ren and Stimpy or whatever. Which it's weird that pop culture references counts as humor, but I guess it's lazy humor. But it's still, some people find it quite amusing. So I just have jokes just buried in conversation, like you just took a 30-second chunk out of a episode of 30 Rock or Police Squad or something. That it's just that kind of bizarre humor where someone does something funny and people either react or they don't, or but it's not necessarily punchline driven.
So yours is more a wordplay a lot of times.
Well, it's situational. It's not. Here's like your basic 4-panel strip is here's the setup, here's the kind of like the middle bit, and then you end on a punchline. Sometimes I'll have a punchline in the middle of a page, and I've been doing it this way long enough that I don't like this panel that I'm working on right here is just I was Googling sword stances, and I came across one, and it just this is the Jodane no Kamae stance from Kendo. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool information. So I decided I'd have my other character here holding her sword like a spear, and I don't know what the hell that's called, so I just called it the stupidest thing I could think of. And so there's no, I mean, that's not really a joke, but it's just that kind of lighthearted, you know, add-on to what would normally be going on. So yeah, my approach to writing humor is stick it in wherever you can. And after years of that, I think I'd probably be kind of bad at doing strips, where you have to have, you know, a stronger punchline. But who knows? I've never tried that, so.
I was totally convinced that I could not do a comic strip that was focused on humor. Like, I did not think that was my strength or my wheelhouse, and I'm not claiming I'm particularly good at it either. But so when I started doing Modest Medusa, I thought that I would. I set some rules for myself. I was like, I wasn't doing anything else at the time. I wasn't working or doing anything, so doing 3 strips a week was pretty easy for me. And so I set my standard high, and I said to myself I wasn't going to do any reference humor or any cheap jokes or any jokes that relied just on the character being cute. And that lasted for something like 4 strips.
Yeah.
And I had to give up because being funny is hard, I feel.
Yeah.
Now, these days when I'm writing strips, I kind of feel like I ran out of jokes about 100 strips ago. And more of the stuff I want to do isn't jokes necessarily, it's just story.
Yeah, situational stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like really when I'm trying to come up with a gag for a strip, anything that comes to mind is totally game, even if it's not particularly funny. Which I don't know. Maybe that's a quality issue. Maybe I've been doing the strip too long if I can't think of anything good. But I also feel like just there's humor in small stuff.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And especially if you, there's nothing wrong with a strip or any kind of story transitioning from one thing to another, as long as it's gradual. I don't like there was some anime I was watching. I think it was called My Hime, and it couldn't decide if it wanted to be slapstick humor or like soul-wrenching like drama. Mm-hmm. And it was like every other episode. One of them was like, oh, that boy saw my panties, ha ha ha, fall over, you know, honk noise, whatever. And then the next one was, this girl has to like spends half the episode screaming while her brother gets devoured by some monster. And it's just like, God, I mean, just one thing or the other. But like I said, it's okay for something to transition over time. You start off, you know, with jokes, but you start telling more of a story and it becomes situational. But by that time, the audience knows the characters, you know, and I think that's fine. You know, you don't have to make, like, everyone doesn't have to be like politically insightful or something. It just as long as it's a good progression, I think that's okay.
Sure.
Definitely. Robert, especially with like Chance of Doom, a lot of times I see you use the type of humor, something odd done normal.
What do you mean?
Well, like, okay, really good example is Addams Family, you know?
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite ones is some of old Charles Addams' original artwork of the Addams families, like the families standing on top of the mansion there. It's Christmas. They got carolers out front, and they're calmly about to pour boiling oil onto the group.
Right.
You know, generally speaking, a lot of your humor goes along those lines. You know, having Doomy try to just have a normal life, but especially in a haunted house.
Yeah, it's quirky. I'm still, you know, trying to find out where it's going or how I'm going to get there. Each strip is not. I mean, I have an idea of where the story is going. Like I know the beginning, middle, and end. But each individual step I basically take every week. And it's really hard to to write humor for a story like that, especially when oh, I don't know. Yeah, it's really hard to. I have no words today. It's hard to write humor. It's hard when you're trying to write a story with 4 panels a week. When all your readers, well, not all your readers, but when people see it, they expect a gag. They expect a punchline. Like, they expect to laugh out loud every single time because it is a strip. It's for 3, 4, 5 panels, and it reminds them of, I guess, newspaper strips where it's supposed to be a joke. When, not every strip is a joke. I mean, I try to put something funny in it. I don't expect people to laugh out loud or giggle or just I might get a smirk out of them. That if they identify with it. If they don't, then sorry, I can't walk you through it. I've been getting a couple comments lately on different boards where they're saying, I don't get it. I don't understand. And can you explain it to me? It's like, sorry, it's completely lost if I try to explain it to you.
But
it was a Star Wars reference. That's all I can say.
Are the jokes that you're doing, do they depend on knowledge of the characters?
Not necessarily. It's more situational, I would think. When I write, I know what story I want to get across. Like, I want to get a little, take another step within, what's going on in the environment and everything. And I want to find something funny in that. So, there's a lot of back and forth with, the dialogue and trying to pull something funny out of that, or funny situation, or a play of words, or anything, So, I don't know.
Yeah, it's curious. That's always one of the weaknesses of strips is when you have to rely on the reader's knowledge of what's going on. So that's why remember the old Spider-Man strips in the paper. It was like a four panel strip, but the first panel was always previously on Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Because they had to remind you what the situation was, because day to day, and then the last strip was always some kind of cliffhanger onto the next one. So they really only had 2 or 3 panels to tell anything, because they had to keep you invested in the story, and that's always the challenge with any kind of periodical publication like that. But yeah, which is kind of why I always wondered why, until I realized that was the problem, why Hagar the Horrible or the Wizard of Id or all those ones had very little Hagar the Horrible had very little Viking jokes. It was just social commentary, because otherwise, you would have to know specific things about the characters, and it has to be the most generalized possible humor.
Yeah, there's no story in those at all. It's you know the characters, you know that they're Viking, but other than that, there's nothing to it.
Yeah, there's no development.
Yeah, there's no development. I mean, the typical characters. The relationship with Hagar and his wife. The relationship between the family in Foxtrot, the family in Zitz. The relationship between Garfield and his owner.
Yeah, there's a few pieces of knowledge that you have to know about. Like Garfield doesn't like Mondays, doesn't like Odie, enjoys lasagna, and once you know that, that's basically all of the actual specific knowledge you need to understand any particular Garfield strip.
I think that's one of the strengths of webcomic strips over newspaper strips, is that with a newspaper strip you have to count on your audience, that your audience may only be reading that one strip ever.
Yeah.
Where with a webcomic, where that might be true as well, if somebody reads one strip of a webcomic, they can almost certainly if they like it, go and read the rest like right away.
Yeah, and if nothing else, a lot of webcomics that I hit for the very first time, I'll read one or two, and then I'll click the About button, because that gives you the elevator pitch. You know, this is a story about zombies in post-apocalyptic Earth, and the main character is a cyborg. You know, like that's all you need to know, basically for the basic setup, and then of course you can go and then read with that preface. But yeah, you can't do that in a newspaper. So yeah, webcomics have that strength.
I mean, you still have the burden of having to win people over as fast as you possibly can.
Sure.
Unfortunately, you got to win people over with every strip.
Yeah.
And I decided not to try to do that. Like I said, I know where I'm going with the whole story, and I know what all the strips are going to look like when they're next to each other in the book, so that you can just read them from page to page to page. When I post it every week, if somebody just happens to go there for the first time and they read it, they're not gonna really get it unless it's like a gag, unless it's a funny a funny joke.
That's a really fine line. I mean, you got to really decide if you're making your comic for the daily readers, the casual readers, or if you're making the comic to be read in one chunk, whether it's as a book or...
Yeah, there was a while that I was a little paralyzed by the thought that whatever any individual page may be the first page that anybody reads about the comic, so I had to be like with The Wizard of Id, I had to be generalized in my humor. I had to make sure that everything was like one visit to the page would be everything that everybody would need to know about it. But I quickly gave up on that because I don't think you can really tell a good story like that.
No.
Yeah.
No, you can't tell a story that way. I keep looking back at like the only webcomic I actually read is Girls with Slingshots.
Yeah.
And that one, it's not necessarily funny, like joke-wise, like gag-wise every time, but it's humorous. It gives you a smirk. You go there and you read it. Like for the first time I read it, I was like, I have no idea who these characters are, but I'm gonna go back and start from the beginning, or I'm gonna go back 100 strips and start reading from there, or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the most popular webcomics there is.
Yeah, I always find it curious. Like, it really helps a webcomic if there are some webcomics out there that have the previous button and they have the first button, but they have no way for you to jump back 10 pages or 100 pages for like a month. So you either have to, if you want to catch up to where you were, where you last left off, or you want to read like from the beginning of the current storyline or something, they have no way of doing that in their navigation. WordPress and Comic Press usually has that widget, and a lot of people have it active, but it bugs me that when a webcomic, it's harder to get into something when your only option is to just manually page back through 100 pages, or jump back 500 strips and start from the very beginning, when most webcomics, honestly, are not their strongest at that point.
That's true.
Well, I have an archive page that I update every week, or at least I try to update every week. So I mean, if you can generally figure out where you left off, then you can go to that page and click on where you think you landed, and hopefully you're like, oh, I read that one already, and then just forward.
There are also things like Comic Rocket and other stuff that keeps track of where you were in a comic, so when you come back to it, it's like right there. And
yeah, I recommend Comic Rocket for that. I know Ink Outbreak does it too, but their navigation is a bit more squirrely. But yeah, Comic Rocket's great for that.
Yeah, but it is a problem. I mean, it is an obstacle we have to overcome, or people have to overcome when they're reading webcomics.
The thing I do on my page is I have that Who's Who. It's a widget that shows up next to each strip that's like just the 2-sentence version of this character has this power and is dating this character. And so anybody who appears on a page that has any significant amount of dialogue will show up in the Who's Who, just as a quick reminder, a quick refresher, because I've been reading webcomics where some character shows up and there's a joke contingent on knowing who that character is, but they haven't shown up in 60 pages. And I don't know. I mean, that's been 2 months since I've seen that character last, so...
Yeah. No, I think that's really smart and really valuable. That's something I need to do more. I'm constantly getting, I'll bring back a character, and I think in my mind it's really, we've only seen that character a little while ago. They're important, but my readers will be like, "Who the fuck is this guy?"
Yeah.
Or more often than not, none of my readers can remember the genders of my characters at all, which isn't important, but that comes up all the time. I feel like this is a weird thing to say. I feel like I need to gender tag all my characters.
Just put eyelashes on the girls. That's how you do it in cartoons.
At least your readers can pronounce the name of your characters or the name of your strip even.
No, fair.
I get a lot of people saying that they like my comic Cloudy with a Chance of Doom, even though it's overcast.
Oh my, that's great.
And
I mean, that's not great. That sucks. But
no, I mean I understand because it's like that's one of those popular movies is Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and that's what they just associate it with, even though it's supposed to be Overcast with a Chance of Doom.
I get a lot of people coming up at conventions and going, "Oh, I love Modest Mouse," and I'm like, "Okay."
Okay.
Oh.
I'm glad and they're like, "Oh no, I meant your comic," and I was like, "Oh."
So you do get it with same thing. Okay.
Probably not as much as you do, but yeah.
What was that?
Probably not as much. It honestly doesn't happen a lot, but it happens enough that it's annoying.
No, you actually probably get a lot more than I do because you have more readers.
Well. But now I can't hear anybody anymore. Did we stop talking? Or?
I'm here.
I'm still here.
Okay, good.
So, I mean,
back to the comedy writing bit.
That's what I was going to say. Go ahead. Go ahead. You had something you were going to say. Nope.
Were you going to say anything, Chick?
Can't hear.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Keep talking. Okay, well, I'll just keep talking. So yeah, I knew that I needed to work on my writing a lot and my comedic abilities. So I got several books that definitely helped. They're right here. One of them is Comedy Writing Secrets by Mel Helitzer. It's pretty thick, but it's got a lot of really good information in it.
That's interesting. I'm surprised that I don't know, for some reason humor seems like something that is hard to analyze and say here's why this is funny. Because it's so personal. Like I may think Ace Ventura is the funniest movie ever made, and someone else may think that like really dry, like The Office, where all the humor is based around how embarrassed can you feel for yourself and for the characters while watching it. Like that's super funny to people, and I hate that. But yeah, it's weird. It's interesting to see that there are some books that you found useful.
Another book was the Comedy Bible by Judy Carter.
I've seen that book before.
And the one that I found the most useful, which was the smallest, which was funny, is How to Be Funny by John Max. Which is, I mean, I understand what you're saying, Dave, with the, comedy is I guess it's like in the ear of the beholder, it's like you find, everybody finds something different that they find funny. But there are obviously comedians who have, thought about these things for a long time and have analyzed it over and over again and trying to find out what makes people laugh. And I think it's been distilled down to surprise and timing.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that's,
everything is funnier Your
it's
favorite
so
movie
hard
is
to
funny the first time you see it.
get those things down. But there was a list in the How to Be Funny book that I found very useful. It was 13 rules on how to be funny. Be smart, be topical. Um, use funny words and sounds.
I like funny words and sounds, especially.
Have a target. That's that's a big one.
Wait, what does that mean?
Sorry?
What does the have a target mean?
Basically have the butt of the joke.
Okay.
Who are you making fun of, or what? Who's the target? Have a point of view. Surprise. Timing. And then there's like tag a joke and do a run. Let's see here. Keep it short. Hit a triple. And sell the joke. And take it to the next step, the what if. And always ask, what is stupid about this? Yeah. And that's all covered within like 20 pages. And,
That sounds like advice from an old Neil Simon play,
Yeah.
Like, one of those plays about like old sitcom writers or variety show writers.
Well, this guy, John Max, he was the comedy writer for, it says on the cover, it says Jay Leno, Steve Martin, Billy Crystal, and Whoopi Goldberg.
Oh, okay, that explains it then, right?
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So yeah,
Let's see.
I would definitely recommend How to Be Funny by John Max. And not that I'm getting any kind of money from endorsing those books, but
Yeah.
Well, I'm taking a humor writing class on Skillshare.
and how's that going?
Is that coming in handy?
Actually, pretty good. Oh, the class itself is actually turning out pretty good. The nice thing about it is you can work at your own pace. So if you need to just go ahead and put it aside, you can for a little while, and then go back to it again.
Mm-hmm.
That is nice.
But the different, the class syllabus and whatnot, it's all digital there. And she gives you different reading and viewings and whatnot. And this is an interactive class, so there's both discussion. You get to review each other's work, and like I said, she gives you each step. She gives you like 4 or 5 articles, or sometimes there's videos, sometimes a little bit of both. And it kind of helps you refine things. Besides reading some on just plain humor, like stand-up comedy writing, I've also been reading How to Make Webcomics, and then the Webcomics Handbook by Brad Geiger, and then the Cartooning Handbook by Brad Geiger too. There's a lot of different really good breakdowns there, especially for gag-a-day type strips. I wrote down some of the topics he covers specifically for writing. He really emphasizes, these aren't the only ones, but these are the ones that he's seen the most, and they're kind of the tried and true that he covered. So there's, for instance, misdirection. So, something along the lines of, let's see, a sentence that can be understood in more than one way.
Right.
And so a lot of times, a lot of people use that. There was he put a gag in there, a little one-panel comic, and woman was standing there with a child on the hip and the other one down right around her leg, both of them bawling their eyes out, and her husband standing in front of her, and she said, you want to go out tonight? All right, we'll call a babysitter. And he says, do you think she likes Italian?
Huh.
So you're assuming, for the simple breakdown of that, you're assuming that, she's saying, okay, call the babysitter, bring a babysitter over, and then I can go. And, you know, he took it the other way. It's quite interesting. Just a very simple example. Let's see. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say some of my favorite kind of humor is it's essentially that, but you do it with tropes. So where you set up one thing that your genre-savvy audience knows the way it's going to go, but then you flip it on them. The best example I can think of is in True Lies, the scene towards the 3/4 mark where the bad guy is doing his rant. Oh, we will rain fire down on America, and the battery on the camera is dying, and the henchman is just standing there shaking. He's like, "What is it, you moron? Battery is dead." And he's like, "Well, go get another one," because everyone right there just knew that dude was going to get shot. But I mean, it's so good when you take something like that and turn it on its ear. I think that's so funny. The problem with that kind of humor and also pop culture references and topical humor is it does shorten the shelf life of the humor. Topical references, obviously, they have to be, you make a joke about. It's like listening to Mystery Science Theater. Like, the only way to watch that show is with 5 friends, and one of them is has a doctorate in movie history, and one of them knows everything about Chinese culture, because you have to have all these. Their references can be so obscure and oblique. If you're just sitting there watching it by yourself, half of the stuff you don't know what they're talking about. But I still dig that kind of humor. So much.
No. Yes, I'm in the middle of doing a podcast.
Oh my God, have we been ruined yet?
I don't think so. Can you guys hear my friend talking in the background?
Yes.
Little murmuring, but I don't think it's.
I'm going to say no. That's fine. A little. Okay. I feel like I had something I wanted to say in response to what you were saying, but now I completely forgot.
The timeliness of humor and the longevity of topical humor and tropes and stuff?
Yes. I'll just keep my mouth shut because I don't know what I was going to say.
All right.
See, the timing was off on that, and that's why.
Yeah, I think the sort of humor you can rely on for all time is not even all time, clever wordplay. You have to take a class to understand half of what Shakespeare was on about these days. But I don't know. I think the most timeless humor is the low humor. The slapstick stuff.
Yes.
Characters just acting funny and bizarre and weird. I think personally, my favorite kind of humor is the sort of somebody does something bizarre, but then it's the cut take to someone reacting to it. And there was a lot of that in 30 Rock. The Jenna, the diva performer says something she's going to do, and it cuts to Liz Lemon for a second, who just has time to pinch her face a little bit and tilt her head, but it's literally it's 15 frames, half a second. Then it cuts right back to Jenna, who's going on and on about something else, completely oblivious. For some reason, that's very funny to me. Same thing with the Naked Gun type movies and Airplane.
No, I think you're totally right, and that is really, really funny. I decided early on that, especially when I realized that a lot of my audience was very young children, that poop jokes were always going to be a safe way to go. and not just poop jokes.
Toilet humor. There we go.
Yeah, you cannot go wrong with. Well, all right, you could totally go wrong with this, but appeal to a broad audience in a relatively safe way. God, which sounds really pedestrian now that I say it. But if that's what you're trying to do, then telling jokes about poop or about vomit or about, to some extent, embarrassment or stuff like that is, ridiculously universal.
Yeah.
That's always the problem with a lot of. Sorry, Robert. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying I think it's because everybody can identify with it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And the weird thing is that's not even the kind of humor that I love. If I was making a list of my 20 favorite funniest movies, there wouldn't be a lot of movies about poop jokes in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Maybe it means I'm going for what's easy.
Well, you got to write for your audience.
That's true. That's
Well, you got to
true.
write for your audience, and you can't make it too obscure or too narrowed. Then nobody's going to get it, and it's going to really fall flat.
Well, you know, but sometimes, you know, I was talking about Mystery Science Theater. I also just recently rewatched. I was talking with Melony before the podcast started about all the vast amounts of Netflix that I watch while I'm drawing, and I'm like running out of things to watch because I've seen everything. So I recently watched the entire run of Frasier, and some of the humor in that was them intentionally being so obscure. You know, would you like to try this Chardonnay? Does Von Baudelaire write in quintantic pentameter? Like, nobody knows what they're talking about, but it's just the fact that the characters are so in their own world, that by itself is funny.
Yeah.
So obscurity can be funny if it's used right.
Yeah. No, that's totally true. And I mean, there's a lot to be said for, you know, building your jokes, building the audience's knowledge of what you're going to make fun of, introducing a concept that people are unfamiliar with, and then making it familiar enough that you can then make jokes about it. It's that funny.
Which is more challenging to do, like we were talking about in a webcomic. In a movie or a show, that's fine. But in a webcomic, there's a little bit more of a challenge there. It's not impossible, certainly.
No, certainly not impossible, but it's definitely harder, I think, than just going for cheap toilet humor laughs.
Yeah.
Although not necessarily always more rewarding.
But poop.
Sometimes poop is rewarding, yes.
It is true.
Of course, I think about toilet humor, when you establish toilet humor as your baseline, it's much harder to make an erudite joke. But in Frasier, you can start off with like jokes about obscure vintages of wine, but a granddad farting when company comes over is still just as funny. So you have a broader spectrum of humor in that case.
Sure. Okay, let's see. Okay, so there's misdirection. There is something odd done normal, and then the opposite, something normal done odd, you know. The example that Brad Geiger used was from his strip Evil Inc., and it was that cubicle scene.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about how they've upped their efficiency just by cubicle design, and you look at the scene, and there are no openings to the cubicles. Everybody is literally boxed in. So, you know, I mean, you know, it works. It's just, you know, don't overuse it by any stretch of the imagination. Something I put under wordplay, not everybody does, is puns.
Oh, I hate puns so much.
I
Go
love
on.
puns.
Oh, I hate puns. Probably we'll never get along again.
I love puns. Oh my god. And everybody then hates me.
Well, no, I enjoy clever puns, but I think puns have a bad reputation because they're easy to do, and there's some really awful puns, but there are also some really great ones. So there's a spectrum there, I think.
I made the mistake of telling my readers I didn't like puns, and so now my reader comments are full of puns all the time.
That was a mistake. It was, yeah. Telling people what you don't like is asking them to give that to you.
Yes, all right. So the other thing I told my readers early on I don't like is feet, because feet are gross. And so now when I'm at conventions, people come up to me and show me their feet.
Tell them you don't like money.
I was going to say, I don't like boobs.
Yeah, I don't like money and boobs.
Yeah.
Wow. Feet, huh? They actually come up to you and show you their feet.
They would take their shoes off and put them on my table.
Ah! No!
That's only happened twice. But the number of people coming up and going, "Hey, Jake, I'm not wearing any shoes today. I'm just wearing sandals. Check out my feet," is very large. That happens at least once a convention, and probably more often.
I would definitely try that with boobs. See if you get girls coming up, "Hey, I'm not wearing a bra."
Say, boobs, awful, no, what's that, gay, no.
We'll see how that works out.
Don't get arrested or anything. You said you had a young audience, so maybe don't do that.
Yeah, that could get me in trouble.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Understatement. I really enjoy understatement a lot in different webcomics in general. You know, an extreme situation summed up in the most pedestrian way possible. I just, yes, delicious.
Yeah, I actually, I guess since I don't have a lot of confidence in my, well, I don't want to say I don't have confidence in my humor, because I'll go back and look at some of my old pages and I'll just giggle, you know. I can do stuff that's very funny to me, certainly, which I assume that means other people will find it funny. But I think, I don't know, I like downplaying my humor. That's not really the same thing what you're talking about with the understating, but I guess that's why I like stuff like 30 Rock, where you just have a joke and you move right by it. What I don't like is shows where like they tell a joke and then they like parade around on stage for 5 minutes while the audience applauds. You know, that kind of thing.
Look at my joke.
Like
shows without a laugh track on it.
Yeah. I mean, well, I don't mind a laugh track. I really don't, except for bad laugh tracks, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But like Stephen Wright was that kind of comedian, because it wasn't like a lot of comedians will get up on stage and they will tell a 5-minute story with a great punchline, but that's all he told was punchlines. Like, it was just, here's a joke. Look how slow and, you know, depressed I am. I am Eeyore the comedian, and then he tells another joke, and then it's just 50 jokes in an hour versus, you know, 7 really.
There's like
ones.
a speed.
Yeah, where if you don't have time.
You're right. That's something that 30 Rock did really well. Bob's Burgers does that well. Yeah.
Well, it's that same kind of like that retro scripting style that H. John Benjamin picked up from Dr. Katz. You know, it was just that very natural dialogue where it's people talking to each other, and even sometimes they'll laugh at each other, which is perfectly acceptable. I always think it's funny, and actually, I tell you what, my favorite humor is in the entire world, and it's not even humor, it's not even clever, it's when one actor makes another actor laugh, which you don't see a lot. I mean, but like on like the Stephen Colbert Report, sometimes he'll be doing his thing and he will just lose it. And there's some great clips on YouTube of like the Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yeah.
What's his name? I can't remember his name. The bald guy makes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Well, they'll be doing something, and he'll make Ryan Stiles start laughing, and the guy has to practically walk off stage because he's laughing so hard. And that, to me, is the funniest thing in the world. And that's not really a type of humor. It's just something that's funny to me.
I've seen that done a lot on the Carol Burnett show.
Yeah.
Yes, that's like a classic example.
Yeah, that was the one guy on there. Like, it was all practically his job to make the other actors break character and start laughing. And that's
I loved it.
Yeah, I remember his name. Tim. I want to say Tim Henman. No, Tim Conway.
Yeah, Tim Conway.
Yeah, I like. There's a lot of scenes on YouTube of the Carol Burnett show where it's just him making the other guys laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's not the kind of humor you can really tap into for a webcomic. I mean, I guess you could have a character make another character laugh, but that's not.
That sounds like an interesting challenge, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I'm not sure what that would look like.
Because, I mean, I do have a few jokes that I think are actually genuinely funny. Like I said, I normally try to downplay them, but I also like it when another character acknowledges that a funny joke was told. And I did that once. Let's see, I guess I did that once in my comic where it wasn't someone telling a funny joke. They just said something funny, but I have a character who can be in 5 places at once. And the way I emphasized the humor of the joke was one of her in another location started laughing and scared someone. They didn't hear the joke, but all of a sudden someone sitting next to them burst out laughing. Yeah,
that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, that's tough. I would I'd love to tap into that for a comic, but I think it has to be done with live people or something. I don't know. It's funnier when everyone around them starts breaking character. But of course, the characters aren't in character in a comic; they are the characters. So there's layers of weird complexity there.
I want to say that I feel like that's not impossible, but like I said, I'm not sure what that would look like necessarily.
Yeah.
There's got to be a way to do it.
I feel challenged.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, and I don't know how funny that is. I don't know. It may be a cute character moment because I had one a strip where a character. Let's see, what was it? One of them was saying, "Oh, I'm not looking forward to this press conference." The other one says, "Or no, I'm looking forward to this press conference less than I'm looking forward to going to the OBGYN." And the other character is like, "Well, good thing they removed that portion of the interviews." And so the next panel is they're both like snickering and doubling over laughing and stuff. Which amuses me. I don't know how funny that is to a reader, though. I mean, it's probably like this little heartwarming character development moment, but I don't know that it's necessarily ha-ha funny.
You know, I'm always amazed by what readers find funny. Like, I'll post a strip that I think is hilarious, and nobody will comment on it.
Yeah, it'd be complete crickets.
Here.
Whereas, like, last week I posted I literally couldn't think of anything, so I had a strip which I thought was pretty unfunny. It was a pretty basic gag. And I put it up, and I don't know, that's the most, I got more comments on that strip than anything I posted in, like, the last few months. So
Yeah,
I can never predict what people
that seems to be a common story. The Webcomics Weekly guys said that would happen a lot to them. They put up something they did not think was great, and, you know, and of course the famous example of, what is it, Tchaikovsky hated the Nutcracker Suite, but that's like the only, you say Tchaikovsky and everyone thinks Nutcracker, that's everyone's favorite piece of his music, but he didn't like it. So I'm sure there's a psychological term for the sort of like self-blindness.
There must be.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So I don't know, I try not to spend too much time thinking about what my audience is going to like and not like. I mean, I still spend time on it, of course. You can't. It's impossible not to think about it.
Yeah.
But I try not to spend too much time.
Yeah, I'm not too overly concerned about, like, writing for the audience. I'm just concerned about writing something that I think is kind of funny, or, you know, and if people are gonna like it, they're gonna like it. You know, if they don't, then they don't have to read it. You know?
Yeah.
But
pretty much.
there goes this one. But that doesn't help when you know, you're trying to make money off of it.
Yeah.
You know.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like the webcomics I love the most, and just the stuff in general I love the most, are the ones where, if I had to guess, the author is not particularly concerned about what anybody thinks about their work. They're just making something that they really want to make.
Yeah.
It's always hard to tell anyway.
Yeah, it's there's a balance. I mean, there's there are people out there who are just dedicated to putting the thing out that they want to put out, and that's great. But then there are also people out there who they want to, like I consider myself one of these. Like, I have a story I want to tell, but I also want to continually improve my craft. So I'm always picking up other comics and like looking at panel layouts and, okay, I have a page come up where I have to fit a lot of dialogue on a page, so I'll start paging through something to see good ways to do that. Like, here's a, you know, I'll draw one character that is like 2/3 the size of the page, but then I'll have panels extending out from under them showing other people reacting to what they're saying. So it's like, you know, different ways of laying out pages. I'm always concerned about trying to improve what I'm doing, but still it's just important to me that you know, I'm true to my vision of what I want my comic to be in the first place anyway. So, but you're right. I think there are people out there who are they're really just doing it for themselves, and then there are people out there who are, you know, obviously you always hear the tale of the person who puts out their webcomic, and in 6 months they hardly get any traffic and they get frustrated and quit. It's like, why aren't I making a living at this yet? You know, that's just unrealistic. But
yeah, that's completely unrealistic. I don't expect to hardly have any readership at all for the first 2 years.
I've met several people like that who gave up their webcomics after 6 months or a year because they weren't making any money, and they, for whatever reason, they thought webcomics was going to be an easy money thing, which I don't understand. And I'm sure you guys have met people like that as well.
I've heard about them, yes. I quit my comic because I wasn't interested in doing it anymore, and then I started it up again because I got interested in it again. I didn't think I was going to make any money off of it. It'd be great if I did, and I have been making money off of it with Patreon, but you know.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying I want to do a webcomic and make a bunch of money off of it. I just feel like that's if you want to make a bunch of money, almost anything's going to pay better.
Yeah.
So
That is true.
yeah, like literally almost anything.
But it's I tell you what, I mean, going from a full-time job to doing this full-time, I feel very pleased that I've been able to do that. Even though it's half as much as what I was making, and that may be a problem when it comes time to pay taxes or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so much. I mean, the idea of like job hunting and going and finding another job is just pretty soul crushing.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
I'm sure you're a lot happier, you know, being able to do this as opposed to what you were doing before. And
yeah, it's not like
I
my
am.
job was terrible or anything. It wasn't like I was, you know, breaking my back stocking shelves or something. But
Or getting your fingers crushed by forklifts.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was only the left hand. Only.
Still.
Yeah, it was a little bit painful. Yeah. I still have it though.
So does that help at all? That whole comedy writing thing? Did it shed any light? Is any is anybody even more confused?
Well, comedy writing itself, I found you just basically have to sit down and just start writing, you know, and you're gonna stumble quite a lot, a lot, but you're gonna start picking it up. I've got about 35 strips written now, and you know, I just started writing, and I didn't look back at my first couple. I just kept going, and I had to put it aside for a little bit because, you know, got a day job and whatnot. I'm the only one here that has the day job, by the way. You all make me sick. No kidding. And then I turned back to go back to doing some more writing, and I realized just from that experience of, you know, writing those 35 strips, my first couple, I could see some of my flaws, and it actually gave me a little bit of chance to go back and refine my language a bit and just kind of tighten it up a bit more.
You know what's really cool about posting comics on the internet is once you put like 50, 100, 200 up, you can always go back and change the words in the word balloon. You know, if you think of something funnier, if you want to revise it a little bit, go right ahead. Fix your punctuation. Fix your, your context. Just go ahead and rewrite it, and use that one for your book.
But that's a certain amount of a rabbit hole that you could go way down and then just be perpetually.
Yeah, I actually recently, for the first time, reread almost my entire strip, like in big chunks, like maybe 70 pages at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I just wanted to like start taking notes and be like, oh god, I've got to fix that chin. I've got to fix the one eye is wonky. Yeah, that's a bottomless pit. But I think before I publish my book, there's a few pieces of art I am actually going to redraw, but not whole pages. I know if I start doing that, then I'll never do another new page, basically.
Yeah.
Well, when I was I did Rise and Shine for I started in 1998 or something like that, and I'm going back and adding color to them so that I could put them in a book. And I keep every time I'm starting to add color, I'm like, oh, I got to change this, give this person a better eye or something like that. I have to prevent myself from doing that. But what I was saying, what I was really mean was, I have this one comic, an earlier one. Let me find it. It's somebody had said it was like the second strip that I posted. It was about these the girls. She's like, I think I painted over the outlets in my room. Can you help me find one? And the other girls like, you don't have any. This is an old house, and not many rooms have outlets. And the punchline was her saying, "Now I know why the ad said electricity free." And somebody responded and said, it would have been funnier if it said free electricity or something like that, or switched the two words back and forth.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Right.
You're right. You're right. It would have been a lot funnier, and you know what? I'm gonna switch it.
Yeah, I've never really thought about doing that. I mean, I've made changes for my books, but I've never thought about just going back and changing stuff on the site.
I've done that.
Yes.
I've done that a few times on my comic, but like the one big time I did it, I drew a character in their outfit for the first time. It was like a flight suit, but I made it orange, and I was like, as I posted it, I was like, in my comment below the comic, I was like, that doesn't. I don't know if I like that. I mean, she has firepower, so I figured I'd put her in like an orange outfit instead of a black one. But she kind of looks like an electrician. What do you guys think? And so there was a lot of comments about that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I eventually did change it, and then I actually posted an update. Okay, I've made it a black flight suit instead. But I haven't gone back and like stealthily changed stuff that people have already noticed and commented on. So but hopefully before I do a book, like I said, I'll run through and change all the things that are actually errors.
Right.
But I don't know about like improving other things without calling attention to it somehow. That seems weird. It's like leaving a comment on Facebook. I don't know if you can do this anymore, but it used to be you could, like this if you like ice cream, and then so a lot of people like it, and then you go and edit your comment so you change ice cream to Hitler or something.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's still probably possible, but I don't know. Not that would be my intention, but just the idea of changing something that I
Come
posted.
on, do it! Yes. I want to like Hitler as well.
If you're gonna change something to make it better, then go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
It's your comic. People are paying, giving you money for a good product, and just go ahead.
True enough. I understand doing the, tweaking on your syntax, or maybe you misspelled something and you didn't realize it till after you posted. But I think overall, once you start posting, pretty much leaving it alone is going to be what I'm going to do. I'm going to just post it and say, okay, I'm going to forget about this one, do the next one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Definitely. You have to give it a lot of time. You have to set a limit for yourself, like 25 or 30 strips or something like that, and then you can go back and change something. But go back and just change it once. And if more time goes by and you feel like changing it again, it was like, well, I already changed it. I don't know. Each his own. Do whatever you want. I don't care.
I don't care. I'm an old comics man. My name's Robert.
Yeah.
Get off my lawn.
I don't have a lawn.
Get off my couch.
Get off my sidewalk.
Ah, what the heck? What's that noise?
Oh, I think that was a car by my place.
Jake, it's your fault. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I live in a populated neighborhood. I'm not like you guys who must live in a wasteland where there's no people.
Oh.
I live in the desert where there is no people. So.
I live in Capitol Hill in Seattle, so it's pretty populated.
Mm. Oh, do you live by that Ethiopian restaurant?
Which Ethiopian restaurant?
I don't know the name of it. I ate there. It was on Capitol Hill. I ate there when I was in town for Emerald City.
Oh, that one.
Yes. And you weren't there, so I'm sure you know exactly
That
what
one, yes, I know what that one is. I have no idea.
Ethiopian restaurant on Broadway. I mean, on Capitol Hill. Yeah, I think I live within like a 2-minute walk from there.
Anyway, it was delicious.
I have never
So-
eaten.
Oh, you should. That's my recommendation.
I will try it at some point.
Awesome.
You say you live in Portland?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I just watched all of Portlandia, by the way,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
and and every episode made me never want to go to Portland.
Can I tell you something about Portlandia? People who are actually from Portland are not like that. Like, all the shit that they make fun of are people who moved to Portland.
Oh yeah.
Are you
Like-
Well, 'cause, I mean, we have what is it? Austin? Yeah, Austin down here. I mean, from what I
Sure.
can tell, Portland is the Austin of the Northwest.
Yeah.
It's because it's like every restaurant has a full page of vegetarian dishes, and everyone has caps that they've knit themselves, and it's just that kind of culture.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't think that Portland's really like that. They're just picking on the most extreme examples, but
Let me tell you a story. In the newspaper here last year, there was a guy who wrote an article, and it was about how he ran a coffee shop out in Michigan, and he's like, I'm going to give up my job, I'm going to sell my house, I'm going to end my relationship, and I'm going to move to Portland and live in a van, right? and the article was about how great it was and how he loved it, how he'd been living there all summer, and the only thing that annoyed him was that there were all these people in his neighborhood who lived in vans, in the neighborhood where he was living in his van, and he was like, they're all just like dirty hipsters, and I wish they'd go back to where they came from. And I was reading this article, and I was thinking, but you're the same guy. You moved here to live in your van. It's fine if that's what you want to do. And you don't have a job, and you're complaining that everybody else, all these people from out of town are taking all the jobs, but that's what you're doing. I don't know. I'm the only person I know who's actually from Portland. I get aggravated sometimes. And now I sound like a man who wants you to get off my lawn. So I'll shut up.
Damn whippersnappers. I enjoy my desert town of like 4,000 people.
Well, you can enjoy it all you want, because I'm not going.
You gotta come visit. You can go see all the ancient ruins in the area. Go be an archaeologist in my backyard.
I already brought Rise
Sounds
there,
cool.
so I saw all the pictures.
It's actually a lot of fun to go explore.
Mm-hmm. I don't like
And
it very much.
wear 70 minimum SPF all the time.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I don't like the desert. Too much sun and too much sand.
But it's warm. You don't have to worry about things like snow.
I like
Screw you,
snow.
snow.
I'm from Chicago. I like snow.
Blech.
Except when it gets all black and slushy. Then that's kind of...
have you ever been to Acon?
No.
Jake,
Nope.
have you done it?
No, I haven't.
Really? God, I could have sworn I saw. I almost bought a Modest Medusa book there once. Did you send
you
another
might
comic artist with some of your books or something?
Yeah, sometimes I send books to friends to take to shows with me.
Oh, that
Or
was
with them.
because I was thinking about it and I was like, I'm sure I've seen Modest Medusa at Acon.
Yeah, that might have been my friend Aaron Clooney.
Okay.
Does a webcomic called, or who used to do a webcomic called Nico Machi.
Okay, that one doesn't sound familiar, but I haven't read that one online either. So
Sure.
yeah, all right. So it just occurred to me and it was bugging me.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I am geographically limited by my laziness, and
It's understandable. I mean, God, going to conventions is that's a chunk right there. If you're not just driving there, airfare and hotel and stuff. But I like Acon because, like I said, it's 20 minutes from my door, so I don't have airfare or hotel cost or anything.
It's been recommended to me several times, and I really want to try it out. But
It's a
not
massive convention, but like I said, it's primarily anime, but they have the growing webcomic section. Modest Medusa is not quite anime, but it's not exactly mainstream comics. I think you might find an audience, but I couldn't guarantee.
Well, I think it would be worth trying. I tend to do much better at anime cons than I do at comic cons.
Yeah.
So, and I always tell that to people. I mean, a lot of webcomics people I know just don't think to do anime cons, even if they have comics that are really suited for it. And I don't know, convincing my friends that they should try out anime cons is always a challenge.
Yeah, it depends on. Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of people are reluctant about it just because, there is a certain stigma that goes with them. But I mean, it's comics and sci-fi and anime, and it's all the same kind of nerd. It's just different flavors.
I always run into this fear that people always like, well, I'm going to run into like a furry or something. Like there'll be guys in
Yes.
And I always say, a guy in a fursuit is there to have fun, and a guy in a fursuit is very likely to buy absolutely anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So lots of comics to people in fursuits. They are a fantastic audience, I think. So.
I'm gonna try to make it to A-Kon next year. But I'm also going to try to make it to more horror conventions because I guess more people there are interested in, the type of artwork that I do.
Right.
But, I'll keep going to the local conventions because it's local, like Dave said, no hotel, no transportation.
Well, the only comic convention I've gone to
That makes a huge difference.
was this year to Emerald City and hugged people. Hi! But, the closest one actual comic convention that happens to me is down in Albuquerque. It's actually not today weekend, but next weekend going on. And it's gotten a really bad stigma over the past couple years. I know there's new management, but I want to see how it works out. Albuquerque's still about a 4-hour drive away from where I'm at, so...
That's a distance.
Yeah. It's still a giant pain in the ass. And you have never driven the spaghetti bowl. You do not want to drive the spaghetti bowl. No. No.
What is the spaghetti bowl?
It is the freeway there in Albuquerque. It is called the Spaghetti Bowl. I am not joking. It's a giant clusterfuck.
I guess we'd have to look on Google Maps.
It is horrible, and it is constantly changing. Right now, I would not be caught dead in Albuquerque, not with their horrible police problem. Albuquerque police are known just to shoot you just because you looked at them wrong.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been really bad down there. So, I would wait a couple of years and let things cool off and maybe sort itself out before I would do Albuquerque. The next closest one is Phoenix Comic Con, which is about 8 hours away.
I'm in Texas, and it's probably the same distance for me. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's about time to wrap it up, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about that time.
Oh my God.
Overall, I wouldn't. I don't think I'll do many conventions. Not for a number of years. Maybe Emerald City at some point when I actually have maybe my first book. But honestly, I don't see myself doing many conventions. It's just most of them are fairly far away from me. Nothing's really convenient. And so if I can't be somewhat guaranteed at least make a half decent go of it won't be worth trying for. I know a lot of people do pretty good at Phoenix, but that's been kind of spotty lately.
I always want to try one of those things where you get in a big van with like 10 other artists and just drive around the country and hit like 40 cons in 40 days. That's not a real, something like that.
Mm-mm.
Wow.
Personal space. You in my bubble. Damn
I get.
bubble.
I thrive off personal space, but I could put up with that shit for a little while.
I'd totally be up for that, just for the experience. But yeah, I don't think there's 40 conventions that you can go to in 40 days, though. That's
Yeah, what Daniel Corsetto is doing right now is insane to me. She's doing the cross-country book tour, and
yeah.
I'm just like, oh my god, I wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't know how to do it. My brain just says, no.
I would totally do that. I would totally go for it. But I don't have a car. I don't have enough fan base for that yet. So.
Personally, I'd love to have a
Yes.
fan base large enough that I could get my own tour bus.
I think so.
Well, maybe you could just like charge the fans to ride on the bus with you.
Yeah.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, I mean,
I drive the bus. I make the comics. What do you want?
yeah,
$50.
you could that could be like a Kickstarter stretch goal for like $500. You can get on the bus and sleep in the hotel room.
They should go for 1 mile. 1 mile, $500.
Anyway.
Anyway.
Good talking to you guys.
Yeah, definitely. So, everybody reiterate who you are and where you're from.
Dave Barrick of GirlPowerComic.com.
I'm
Jake.
Robert Tricart.
I'll
I am Robert Tricart of writhandshine.com and chanceofdoom.com.
I am Jake Richmond of modestmerissa.com.
And y'all have Patreons. Pimp them, guys.
It's on the comic page.
Yeah, mine too.
I don't remember the actual address.
Yes.
Yes, I throw money at these people. That's why I got a part-time job. What can I say?
Thank you very much.
Thank
I do appreciate that.
I give y'all $5. $5. Make it holla.
Hello.
All right, and my name's Melony. I do steamannnonsense.tumblr.com and ornamentalcomic.com here pretty soon. Don't look yet. It's not done.
But look soon.
Yes, look soon. Couple weeks at least. $5. Okay. Talk to you guys later. See you next month. Bye.
Bye.